Voilà, this is Ali Azzeddin for Generation 4 Education, and we are in our special day. We are the change, talking about Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, and I can see the people in the chat introducing who they are. Safa, welcome from Lebanon. Betty from South Africa, Insaf from Tunisia, and the people who are bilingual or trilingual like me, they've been attending since the morning, Dakri. This is the last session of the day. And as you can see, people also are joining from Central Asia. We were just talking about Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Georgia, Romania. And so Dakri is currently in China. And I told you, we are going to travel all over the planet today. I had speakers based in Canada, in the US, in Qatar, in Jordan, in Tunisia, in India, and now we're wrapping up the day with this last session with Dakri. Dakri will be talking about teaspoons of change, and so I'm so excited to have him. We're live on Facebook, we're live here on Zoom, and we can share in the chat all the interaction, because we have some interaction for you. And then if you have any question for Dakri, feel free to put it in the Q&A. Dakri, it's your show. You're welcome for the session, and you need just to open your mic and take the lead.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ali. And hi, everyone. Greetings from Shanghai in China. As you can tell, I'm not native Chinese, or maybe you can't tell. But yeah, it's great. So what are we? It's 8:30 p.m. here in China. I'm trying to stay awake. I did a big run this morning, so I've been a little exhausted all day, but I've been looking forward to this. Absolutely. So lovely to see you all from Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Middle East. It's wonderful.
So just to tell you, Shay this morning, she was online at midnight. So 8:30, we can make it.
Kudos there. Fantastic. Look, it's great. Folks, I've been very lucky to be a global citizenship educator for about 10 years now, and have spent a lot of time in the Middle East and all around the world, actually. Before coming to China, actually, I didn't really know where I lived. I've been to more than 90 countries in the last 10, 20 years. So hopefully I'm a global citizen just by nature of getting around. But we'll explore today some really practical and useful tips for how to be an active and effective global citizen, or what the hell does global citizen actually mean? And how can we embed this into our classrooms and into our daily lives as well? So what I might do is do a good old screen share, start there, and we'll certainly leave some time at the end for question and answer, and also have a couple of moments here where we'd love to get people's ideas and thoughts into the chat session. And if questions come up, just throw them in there. Ali, you can keep a hold of them, or I'll check in on those questions every so often, and we'll get to them for sure. Super. Okay, let me do the screen share. That's the one I want. Okay. Alrighty, so let's start here. Here we have the global goals, or the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is the best place for me to start always, is with the SDGs. Now look, the thing about these goals is they're very big. And for most people, they're a little bit daunting and don't really know where to start. I think the people who are joining us today, you're not here by accident. So you're probably quite familiar with these goals, but or not really understand 2015 after the Millennium Development Goals, teaspoons of change. Okay, so impact on people on the planet. So when we're looking at these big communities A useful term of more common.
Yeah, do you want to share your PowerPoint again?
Yep, I can.
Okay.
How are we going there now?
I'm hearing you, so hopefully we will not lose you again.
I know. It's of course it always works beautifully when you're on the, for the half an hour beforehand. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Oh, actually, except I know that I haven't ticked a box, which I need to do.
Yeah, the sound one.
Exactly. Always the sound one. Always, always. Okay, here we go. Right. Sorry, folks. Thank you for holding in there. Look, so these global goals, if we want to make them relevant and personal and useful and fun and interesting and engaging, I've got a really good example here from a guy in Japan. I'm not sure if you've seen this one, but let's have a look.
SDGs. I have an apple. I have pineapple. No poverty. I have a pen. I have a book. Education. 70 goals to save the globe. Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay. Hopefully that wasn't too glitchy. Anyway, look, my point is, I have 2 points with this. The first one is, my first one is, if you're a middle-aged Japanese man wearing a leopard suit and can relate to the global goals, then so can you. Yep, that's point number one. Then point number two is, what Pico Pico is doing is connecting his passion and his interest and his skills to those global goals. And so I really like this example, that we don't have to be, working for UNICEF. You don't have to be a geography teacher. You don't have to be a, global IB, global issues teacher or CAS coordinator or whatever to bring these global goals into your life and into your classroom. So that's what I like about that video, apart from Pico Pico himself, which is great. But that's the deal, is in a PE class, in a music recital, in a drama performance, we can bring these global goals into every aspect of our school. It doesn't just have to be that front on, okay, I'm going to do the global goals, I'm going to do sustainability, I'm going to do global citizenship. You can just chip in from the sides and bring it into your maths class, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when you really start to see a huge engagement from the students. So it's not just another thing they learn, it's a contextualization of their learning experience. And it's much more powerful, I believe, at least in my dealings. So if you want some more Pico Pico, there's a link there. I'll be sure to share that one with you. Okay, so let's bring it back. So these global goals, for me, it's about making sure that people have a connection to them, not just sticking them up on the wall and looking at the nice colors. And you don't even have to memorize them or know them off by heart, but just know that it's a collective context for us to make our thinking much bigger. There's also a set of goals called the Good Life Goals, which you may or may not be familiar with. Let me throw in a link here for the Good Life Goals. Now, actually, that web link isn't great. You kind of have to go in. They're a little bit clunky. They're actually not designed for students, but they are designed for us to understand, these big global topics and issues. They run parallel with the global goals, but they're much more accessible. Teachers enjoy them because they can understand them and get familiar with them much easier than the global goals. So often what we'll do is use these as a bit of an entry point, and then just make sure that we remind people that, hey, these Good Life Goals connect with the UN SDGs as well. So behind each of these Good Life Goals, there's a bunch of different actions that you can take, quite personable and actionable. So if we're looking at global goal number 12 here, responsible consumption and production, the Good Life Goal is live better. Okay, and then this gives you little tips like reuse, repair, recycle, share and borrow, or waste less food and use leftovers. And one of my favorites that I like to share with students is collect friends and experiences, not just things. You know, taking them to the movies, or you know, going to watch a game of sport, or whatever they want to do, you know, the ballet. I really think these things, these experiences are so much better than stuff. But that's what I like about these good life goals, is bringing the global goals not in a child-friendly way, but actually in a really authentic, personal and practical way for our teachers, for our parents, for everyone else in our school community. So, so check them out. I reckon they're pretty cool and quite useful. Okay, if we work together as a global community, what these global goals are trying to get us to do is to end extreme poverty, reduce inequality and protect our planet. So when I'm explaining the global goals to other people, I just say, look, they're a big plan, because I can't do, you know, I can't save the world by myself as much as I, you know, want to. No one can. And so that's why we've got this plan for us to work together to try and solve big issues. And that's the crux of the global goals. You know, when I'm speaking to students, it's like, how do you plan to run a marathon? Well, you've got to do some training. You've got to, you know, look at what you eat. You've got to do blah, blah, blah. It's the same for us. If we want to achieve big things, we have to have a plan for us to try and work together and chip out a way and create change. Now, the global goals aren't perfect. You know, I have some issues with some of them, but they are agreed upon and they are a useful term, and we can use them in the way that we want to show our students and our teachers and our parents that this is a useful plan to us, for us to collaborate and connect on. Now, in this space of global citizenship, sustainability, social justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, all these kinds of areas, I believe that we need a good balance of optimism and realism. First of all, on our personal level, you know, some days when the IPCC report comes out and tells us we've got 4 years before we hit some climate catastrophe, that's a tough day. That's a heavy realism day. So I need a good dose of optimism. I might just go and have to watch Pico Pico and the Global Goals video to pep myself back up. And then the other thing we're going to be careful of is not to be too optimistic either. So a lot of our younger students around, you know, year 3, year 4, year 5, they get very altruistic, very optimistic very quickly, but we also have to balance them out with that realism. So when they say, right, I'm going to use less plastic, it's like, okay, that's good, but how? How are you going to do it? I'm going to go and plant a tree. No, you're probably not, actually. I love nature and I don't plant trees because I don't know the right place to plant them. I don't know the right trees to plant. I know I'm not going to be looking after the trees, you know, so we need to have that balance of optimism and realism at a personal level and with our students. And our younger students in the early years, we've got to watch out that they don't wear the weight of the world on their shoulders. You know, they can get very disheartened by some of these topics and issues very quickly and you know, be really concerned. So we need some realism, but we need some balanced optimism as well. So hopefully that's kind of a useful lens for us to think about the way that we approach global citizenship. So on the optimistic side, we have the SDG pandas. They weren't produced by China, but obviously I'm in China, so so everyone loves the SDG pandas. In Australia, maybe they have the SDG kangaroos. I haven't seen that one just yet, but that's what I like, is making these global goals accessible and fun, not just like this heavy thing that we have to do in the IB, or, you know, someone who cares about the planet, they have to do this. It's about all of us trying to find a way to connect to these global goals. And so for me, that's why I created Teaspoons of Change, is to make those connections easier and more relevant and realistic. And it's the old adage of acting personally and locally and impacting globally. So I like that, you know, those two lenses of looking at things from a global context, but making sure you also have that lens at a personal level as well. So my roles are, as with Teaspoons of Change, I've done lots of work around the world in many places, but actually these days in China, I'm working with a group of schools, the EIM group, and they have Dalit schools and the green schools. So I'm very fortunate. I get to go and visit all of our schools for like a week or 2 weeks and go and work as a global citizen in residence. Work with heads of school and college, work with all sorts of admin and faculty, and of course get to do big presentations with students, which is lovely, and teacher professional learning with teachers. So yeah, I feel very lucky that I've had lots of experience and connection with so many different schools in so many different places. Okay, So when we're looking at global citizenship in terms of a concept and our schools are struggling to understand it, what I say is, look, there's a couple of lenses for us that will help us with this. The first one is that collective context. What does this look like from a big picture? And that's where I use the global goals. So whatever lesson you're doing, whatever unit or your topic or your theme or whatever it is, what does that look like on one finite planet with 7.5 billion people? So just bringing that zoom right out to look at these things from a big picture perspective. And so this is where you're not teaching global citizenship as a subject, you're bringing it in to whatever that you're doing, okay? So that's the first lens. Then the flip side of that lens is, what does this look like to me as one person? And you might call it teaspoons of change, you could call it whatever you want. But what I get our teachers to do is to flip between those two lenses so that they're expanding their students' horizons and making the learning very practical and very real for them. So I encourage our teachers to use these lenses into their weekly planner when they can. I don't force people. I don't tell them, right, you should do this every day. It's like, where can you find a little, pin prick of an opportunity to add these lenses in as we go along? And one that's just keeps on growing and growing, which is fantastic, is the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I encourage this from all the way from 3-year-olds right up to our 18-year-olds or university students. So that's just looking from different perspectives. What does this look like for different genders? What does this look like for someone from a rural location? What does this look like for someone from a different religious belief? What does it look like from a older person or a younger person? So bringing these lenses in doesn't mean that you have to teach a subject. It just means that you're expanding the field of vision for whatever class that you're doing, your maths class, etc. And that's what I love about global citizenship, is not making it an add-on, but a value add and enhancing what people are already doing. Okay, so I think I've been talking at you for long enough. So let's get on the chat in a second. Now, this question, what is a global citizen? I don't like it. I think you come up with a boring definition, get put it on a wall, who cares? Okay, so a better question that I like is, are you a global citizen? So have a go at answering that. Are you a global citizen? Yes, no, maybe. And of course, why or why not, or why maybe. All right. So get your digits ready.
We asked the first session, the first question in the morning, and so now we are checking if the participants, they are a global citizen and why. And so I would like to hear from you in the chat or on Facebook the answer to the question: are you a global citizen? And then keep in mind, who is this global citizen? So it's so interesting how sometimes tweaking the question and changing the question can lead to different discussion and can lead to different perspectives. So I'm giving time for the people to write their answers, because asking the why, it will not be a one word. It will lead to different reflections. So Insaf, she started a yes, and then we need to know why, Insaf. So you need to continue with the why. And by the way, Insaf was requesting if you can speak a little bit slowly.
Sorry, yes. My enthusiasm tends to run away from me. And if I could turn down the Australian accent, I would.
You know that we have not only native speakers of English here, we have like different backgrounds and different accents. So why, Insaf, you are a global citizen? And then we started getting some answers. I'm getting, I am a competitive, creative, and dedicated citizen. Pratibha, an educator, an individual, inspire student to stretch their thinking on SDG, and her answer is yes, I'm a global citizen. So what else do we have?
I mean, the big thing for me on this one is, instead of searching for a definition, you have to come up with an answer that's personal. And that's much better for me, is to make sure that you have to have actually felt something and gone and actually asked yourself, what does that look like to me? And then the beauty of this is there is no right or wrong answer.
True.
It's an ongoing discovery. It's a really difficult question that shouldn't have an easy or quick answer. So if you're scratching your head, that's fine. But the next time, you know, you're on the metro or the, you know, wherever it is that you have a moment to think, run this one through your head and just think about, you know, what does it look like to me to be a global citizen? Does that mean checking in on my grandmother and making sure that she's doing okay? Is it cleaning up after myself after, you know, I eat my lunch, or, you know, all those different things, but you have to define it for yourself.
Good. We're getting more responses. And then according to Nelly from Facebook, so we keep an eye on the people on Facebook, she's a global citizen because she's open-minded and then she accepts others and respects others. According to Hisham, he cares about the environment. Fatima, she said she has an active role in the community. Beati, I'm aware of my responsibility in society and the impact I have in the community. And then now I cannot track all the other answers. Mina, she said, I'm a global citizen and a global teacher because I make sure to connect my learners to other learners around the world and expand their world by getting to know and connect with people from different ages and different backgrounds. So this is a very interesting thing. Yeah.
And Mina, I really like that answer because it's expansion. Global citizenship really is about broadening your horizons, and you don't have to travel to do that. You don't have to speak other languages. You just have to be able to, you know, be able to think bigger.
And just introduced the whole concept of being multilingual. And so with that different perspective, being balanced mentally, physically, socially, and empower others. So, and she is a global citizen.
Yeah, actually, empowerment's a funny one. I have a little rule in my head on empowerment. I can't empower anyone else. It's impossible for me to empower someone else. What I can do is give people information or whatever. The empowerment has to come from themselves.
Maybe, so, setting the environment so they can,
I don't own someone else's empowerment.
Yeah.
Only people can own their own empowerment. Yeah, it's quite cool.
It's also like the word of agency. So we don't give it. We just allow for the circumstances so the student, they can develop it, right?
That's exactly it, Ali. And agency is one of those lovely words as well. Yeah.
Okay. So we're ready to continue after all these different perspectives.
Fabulous. Thanks, everyone. Cool. So keep that question bouncing around with yourself and with others. If you really want to confuse parents, it's a great question. I like throwing it out to them for sure.
The people on Facebook are also very active, so I'm getting a lot of answers on Facebook, but we're ready to continue.
Cool. Okay, so this slide is actually quite important. This is sort of the crux of everything that I talk about. So if we're doing teaspoons of change, our personal actions that have a positive impact, that helps us become better global citizens, which help us contribute to those UN Sustainable Development Goals. Kalas, that's it. You know, there really isn't too many tricks other than that. Is we just need to know that our actions feed into a big context. And actually this works in reverse as well. If we want to achieve these global goals, gender equality, sustainable cities and communities, affordable and renewable energy, whatever it is that we want to achieve as those global goals, we need to think as global citizens and act in our own personal choices, decisions, and actions. So that slide is really what sums up everything for me. But I love this concept. So this is where we look at sustainability really is just where help and harm are about equal. So two words that I try and introduce into the schools that I engage with are restorative and regenerative. This is where we have net positive impact in the world. So, you know, green, if you've ever heard of the term greenwashing, that's where, we've got the conventional way of doing things, which creates a lot of pollution. Green is actually probably just less pollution. So we've got to be careful with this term and the way that it's used in green. Same with sustainable. Like sustainable isn't the end game. It's very, very important, but we then need to be pushing towards restorative and regenerative ideas and practices. So look, I'll give you a couple of examples. Kate Rayworth is an economist and works very much in this space. So if you ever keep an eye out for something called donut economics. So you've got a donut, you've got human needs on the inside. So you don't want to be on the inside of the donut. That's not enough sufficiency for clean water, safety, all those sorts of things. And on the outside of the donut is where you going beyond planetary means. So what you want to do is you want to be in the donut, okay? And that's a safe and just space for everyone that's inclusive and sustainable economic development. Yeah. And so an example of that would be something like this. You know, I'm not a huge fan of Adidas, but they got it right with this one. I do a lot of running, but unfortunately not with Adidas. So these shoes are made from ocean plastic. So they're using a waste product to make something that's useful. And at the end of that, when you're finished with those shoes, you take them back to the store. They give you a credit, and then those shoes go into making more shoes. So you then enter into a regenerative circular economy. So that's what we're talking about, of those ideas that have a net positive impact. And the students, if we need to bring these concepts to them so that they can have these as they're growing up in their education to make these big impacts into the future. Sorry, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Darcy Lunn, with a very strange spelling. Sorry about that. It is quite confusing. That's my mother's fault, but that's okay. I am from Australia once upon a time ago. But one thing for me is I'm determined to not hate Mondays. So I haven't hated Mondays for 20 years. I love waking up on Monday. I'm going to be stiff and sore on Monday from my run today, but I love waking up with a great sense of purpose and to try and be a change in the world that makes some kind of impact.
So we have a common point. I love Mondays as well.
Cool. Exactly. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Monday. Monday's just being Monday.
Yes.
You know? Thursday or Friday aren't special. They're just Thursday and Friday. Look, my background is as an educator, but then I've done a lot of work in development as well. So this was working in South Sudan on polio eradication. And it was when I was working in polio eradication that I learned more about I created teaspoons of change. Because with polio, when you have 2 drops and you do that many, many times, we've almost eradicated the second human disease after smallpox, which is polio. And so having worked in these places, learning a lot from people, for me, it was about how do I bring this into the classroom of the kids here in Shanghai, who are never probably going to go to South Sudan, but can have a global way of thinking from their little apartment here in Shanghai. Yeah. And then I'm borrowing a phrase that's been attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. Well, I've got a little spin on this, is to be the change you can't see in the world. And so what Teaspoons of Change tries to do is to put a name onto those little actions that we take that are really hard to see. So I'll give you an example. I've been very lucky. I haven't bought a bottle of water or drink in a plastic container for 9 years. So sometimes it gives me a headache because if I'm walking around Dubai in the middle of summer and I get dehydrated, it can be really hard to refill my bottle. But what you can see behind me is this is the number of plastic water bottles the average Australian uses each year for 9 years. So these are the number of plastic water bottles that I didn't use. And so this is the trick, convincing our students to not, waste food, convincing our students to turn off the air conditioner when they leave the room, or ourselves, is very difficult because we don't see the impact of those actions immediately. So Teaspoons of Change, again, is to try and put a name to those seemingly small and insignificant actions that do make a positive impact. And look, I've been really fortunate to work with lots of different people, and I'll share with you a couple of the different resources and organisations that I've worked with over the years as well. And then I've created a bunch of different programs myself: Teaspoons of Change, Teaspoons of Peace, Tiny Houses, Polio Points, lots of different things, and always here to learn. And it's been great to connect with Ali and hear the work that he's doing as well. So a couple of resources for you, or some ideas, similar to Teaspoons of Change. This is the anatomy of action. And I like it. They're just using a hand. They're using 5 points on how to take personal actions. And the anatomy of action is really easy for us to follow and is quite encouraging. So I've used that a few times. Schools get into that as a theme or a topic they might use for a week. This also stems for like, here are the examples of those small things. But these examples, we have to give them context. We can't just say, turn the lights off, because no one cares, you know, and we can't tell them, hey, turn the light off, you're going to fix all the air. You're not. What we're doing is we're creating attitudes, behaviors, and habits. That's what we're doing. So when you turn off that light switch, the teaspoon of change isn't the little bit of coal that you save. It's the fact that you care about your actions. That's significant. So by taking these actions, what you're doing is you're showing the world that you are connected to your ideas and their action and their impact that they have. So that's the key idea around that sort of stuff. So don't just say, hey, eat less meat, take shorter showers. That's what a global citizen is. That's what a global citizen does, because we care. And we're always looking to try and do more. So for me, my definition, although I hate definitions, is around global citizen is just knowing I'm connected to people on the planet. If I know that, then it feels like my actions matter. And then hopefully I'll try and take better actions on a daily basis when possible. You know, no one's perfect, and don't expect anyone to be perfect because it's impossible. So we are all global citizens. Hey, congratulations. And if we think about the way that we fit into the global goals, that's going to be useful. But then how can we be a good one? You know, how can we be an active and effective global citizen and encourage our students? So for me, it starts with ourselves, personally and practically. You know, what can I do as one person on this planet? And for me, it started with one presentation and then another. And then I kind of found something I really enjoyed doing. And now I've been fortunate to give over 1,600 presentations to over 150,000 people. And it just started with one presentation and seeing what would happen. So the goal is for us to try and make good choices, good decisions, and good actions, as many of them as we can, as often as we can. But I don't go around and tell people, you should do this and you should do that, and give them a moral bashing or a guilt trip. It just doesn't work. So lay it out on the table, give people opportunities for them to take their own action, to have that agency, to show their own sense of empowerment, but by laying it out there. Okay, so look, again, one of the things with teaspoons of change is this balance of help and harm. It's a good way to look at anything and everything. So everything has help and harm. Like my personal life, I'm going to create harm for sure. You know, that's a part of living. Tomorrow, I've got to take the train to Beijing. That's better than flying, but there's still an element of harm to that. But the amount of help and harm, it's a good balance towards help heavy instead of harm heavy by taking the train instead of a plane. I also have to mention that taking the train in China is very easy because they're very, very fast. so that makes a big difference. But yeah, kind of think about this, you know, what are some of the helps and harms in your own life or in this life of your students? And just, you know, just know that what we're trying to do is to flip this balance as much as possible, to go from being harm heavy to help heavy and whoops, sorry, wrong way, to help heavy and harm light. Like, how do we maximize our help and how do we minimize our harm? And again, it's not a perfect world. We're not perfect people, but it's a lovely thing to aspire towards. And there's a saying that I like from a musician called Michael Franti, and he says, are you a part of the pollution or are you a part of the solution? And sometimes we are a part of the pollution and there's not much we can do about it, but that's okay. As long as we're aiming to be more a part of the solution when we can and as often as we can. So I really kind of like throwing that out to the students and getting them to think about, hey, when I'm making this decision, what kind of decision is going to have less harm and more help involved in that decision? And then actually I spent some time in the Middle East or a couple of years ago. I was doing a master's in peace studies. So if you go to the Teaspoons of Change website, I've also done a bunch of work on peace. So looking at the things that we can do that add to a culture of positive peace in the world, if that's of interest to you. Global goal number 16, just throwing it out there. I've also built tiny houses, self-sufficient tiny houses around sustainability. So it's another project. If you're looking to look at what does it mean to live in a more sustainable kind of way where you maximize your help, minimize your harm. I sat down and thought about, well, I didn't sit down at all. I was out hiking, thinking about that a lot and came up with a bit of a list. So yeah, there's lots of things there. So these are little self-sufficient tiny houses that I've made with some students. This one's in Paikakariki in New Zealand. That is a real place. and also one here in south of Adelaide, in South Australia, where I'm from. So I've also done this with some students in different places as well, where they've kind of designed and put together their most sustainable house that they can think of. Now, you don't have to be this excited about riding a bike, but I'd finished riding around New Zealand, so I was pretty happy. But when we do these small actions, this is where I put the personal action into a collective context. So for me, it's like, hey, riding your bike's great. Yeah, because it adds to good health and well-being, global goal number 3. It adds to sustainable cities and communities, global goal number 11. And of course, it adds to climate action, global goal number 13. So putting these personal actions into a global perspective is a really useful thing for our learners and for our teachers as well. A good example here from some students in Japan. Nihongo wakaru na hito irun kana? Chotto wakannai kedo. I'm not sure if any of you speak Japanese, but I've lived in Japan a little bit. So this is my hashi. And these students created a little character here, the little sushi character. And it says, my hashi wasade nai dene. Don't forget your chopsticks. So in Japan, if you go and have noodles, usually they'll give you these little wooden chopsticks. You break them, you eat, and then you throw them away. And so what these students did is they created a campaign for people to take their own chopsticks, use them, obviously clean them after, and just keep on using them every time rather than just the throwaway ones. So my question and provocation to you is, what are your teaspoons of change? It sounds like you've had a wonderful bunch of different sessions today to think through this. You know, what can you take away? So for me, this session is quite conceptual. Bunch of different ideas. Think about how you can feed them into your classroom, but hopefully you can walk away with a couple of things that will really enhance your classes and your school and your curriculum as well. So teaspoons of change, there are a bunch of things up on the website if that's useful. I will share this with as a PDF with Ali, and I'm sure he'll send that out. So if we come full circle back to the global goals, for me, it's about knowing, okay, these SDGs are great. I'm passionate about them, but how do we get them into the lives of our students and our fellow teachers? That for me is the most important thing. So teaspoons of change isn't deliberately trying to be soft or, you know, small. It's trying to be a welcome mat for people to get into the game so that they feel that their actions matter and they can start to take more action. So my audience isn't really you. You're here because you care already. My audience is mainly people who are kind of sitting on the fence or not sure what to do. And this is a great start for them. And I think that's kind of most people actually in the world. Yeah, and sorry, just a couple of other quick examples here. At UNICEF, the United Nations International School in Hanoi, we had SDG guardians. So these students from year 3 to year 5 went around the school, had a look at how they could enhance and bring the SDGs into the normal daily school life. And I loved it. There was a lot of student agency. I trained them up a little bit. They took the ideas. They went and changed the chocolate spread in the canteen. They went and spoke to the year 13s who were ordering plastic and asked them to stop. They just went around and they added the SDGs to all the little components of their school. I just thought it was a fabulous idea, and they took ownership of it and was really well received. So that's a pretty cool example there from Hanoi in Vietnam. Other schools I've worked at have created big murals, and students and like had a cardboard teaspoons holding up and they've written their pledge and all that sort of stuff. A lot of teachers will create like a charter or a list in their classroom right at the start of the school year. Instead of having rules, what are the things we're going to do that have a positive impact? Create your little list of teaspoons of change in the classroom, add to them, do what you can. Make sure they're specific though. You know, a lot of students are great at saying, use less plastic. It's like, okay, but how? How are you actually going to do that? Plant a tree. Well, no, you're probably not. You know, planting a tree takes a lot of effort. You need to be good at planting trees. You've got to look after them. So make those teaspoons of change realistic. You know, that realism and optimism. Don't have too much optimism. Right, we're all going to go and plant trees, because you probably won't. It's a nice thing to say, cool, but it's probably not going to happen in reality. I don't know, maybe it will. I hope it does, but if not, get them to do their teaspoons which are more relative. So I'm just going to go through here to a couple of resources because I do want to leave time for Q&A and would love to have a chat. So Dollar Street's a fabulous resource. This is from Gapminder. Let me put it into the notes, of course. There we go. I've just thrown that into the thing. Oh yeah, Teaspoons to Change website, the link, that would have been a good idea.
I put the link
I'm glad
for
I'm promoting everyone else's. Dollar Street, 30,000 photos, really interesting way to expand the minds of our students. You know, I work in schools where students do travel overseas, but there are plenty of students who don't. But this is a wonderful way for them to gain some insights and thoughts and expanding that idea of diversity into the classroom. So one of my favorite resources. I also love World's Largest Lesson, one lesson each year dedicated to global goals. I've helped write their lesson a couple of years in a row. Great, fantastic resources according to each SDG. They have a really good push every year, great animations, all that sort of stuff. So
and they exist in Arabic. So we just shared this slide in the previous session for the Arabic speakers. Good.
And in Mandarin and many other different languages.
True.
The Sustainability Compass, this is great. So check out Compass Education. They have a really cool sustainability compass. So looking at whatever topic or issue it is, what impact does that have on nature? So north, society, south, well-being, west, economy, east. Students love this. So if you're looking at clothing donation, is clothing donation actually a good thing? Not really, actually. Most of the time it isn't. Because when you look at it from all these different perspectives, you then start to look from different angles. So Compass Education, I've got a link for that as well. So let me throw that one in. There we go. There's Compass. Check them out. Cool Australia is a cool website. Lots of sustainability stuff. A little bit Australian centric. Sorry about that. But if you're looking for environmental sustainability stuff, great resource. Orenda and my friend Alice does a fantastic job on service. So check out Orenda and all the work, especially that reciprocity, ensuring that we don't go and help people or help poor people, but we actually connect and share and learn from other people in the world. Love it. We've even got the SDGs through Thomas the Tank Engine. You know, these are accessible all over the place. There's plenty of Teaspoons of Change up on the website if you're looking for little ideas. Global Citizens, another great resource. I helped start this organization many years ago from, you know, like a tiny office, and they're now huge and in New York and running big concerts and stuff. So I love what they do as well. Jump Foundation, another one, really good experiential learning, loads of ideas, global citizenship embedded, all good stuff. Okay, so let me wrap up. What are your Teaspoons of Change? And just remember that any action, even small actions, multiplied by lots of people, can and will create big change. So will one teaspoon of change save the world? Probably not. But if we all do something, then something might happen. And that's better than doing nothing. It's like, it's not very optimistic, but that's the reality of what we're talking about. So we can see a better world for everyone, everywhere, and forever. This was an Afghan refugee girl I met in Pakistan when I was working in polio there, and she received her first 2 drops of polio. And so my little Teaspoons of Change, I'm always reminded of her, and that every drop counts. Everything we do matters in the world. So it's nice for us to try and do more good things when we can. Yeah, so be the change you can't see in the world. Check it all out, Global Citizen, and some contact details there if people are interested.
And all the amazing messages started in the chat. So Dakri, this was very inspiring. And then people are insisting on this idea that the examples, the website, the resources shared are very inspiring. So it's time for some Q&A. And I don't have a question. I have a request. So Mina would like to invite you as a guest speaker for her grade 3 students. Do you do that? How she can be in touch with you? So how does it work? Let's listen to your answer.
Yeah, these days I do have quite a full-time role with my existing work, but I will always endeavour, not promise, I will always endeavour to connect. I mean, usually what I tend to do is professional learning with teachers. I love connecting with students, but I tend to give more teacher-educator professional learning sessions. Students is my favorite, of course, but if one of these days I'm floating around your area, then Romania, actually, yes, because I have a walk that I want to do from Budapest to Bucharest to Bratislava, 1,000-kilometer walk that I'm looking at doing. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm a French teacher. Can you be a guest speaker to our class? So Insaf, of course, I do, for the people who don't know me, and then Insaf, I think it's her first time with us. I write picture books for kids. And then this is my teaspoon of change. I read these stories, and then I provoke the thinking of the student in French, in English, and in Arabic. Sure, we can be in touch, and then we can plan this. Yeah, I want to ask you, actually, as a kind of a coordinator who oversees this curriculum and integrate the SDGs from primary to middle school to high school. If you want to give a tip for a coordinator who's watching now, where to start? So what would be your tip?
Yeah, great question. Do you know, and I walk into schools, and schools are always at a different level with global citizenship. Some are a long way down the path. Some are really just starting out for the first time. So if it's a school where this concept is very new, I just start with keywords and terms. I think people are scared by the SDGs, by global citizenship, because we think that we have to go out and save the world. And so what I try and do is just make it not scary, make it accessible, and just say, look, being a global citizen is closing the door after you walk through it, or cleaning up your plate at the end of the day. Well, those simple things. Actually, here's a good answer for you. It's because I use this with younger students, but actually when I'm at a school where these concepts are new, it's about being a good person. Mm. What does it mean to be a good person? And that's a great place to start. And then what does that mean to be a good person in your own house, in your own class, in your own school, and then in a global context? So that, and just trying to make these things easy for people to get their head around. And a couple of the key vocabulary words like global goals or teaspoons of change, or some of those things will be really useful for people.
Okay. So I'm getting more thank you. It was very inspiring. I'm going to wrap up the day here. So no more questions. I think you are exhausted. I've been here since the morning. Let me just say to everyone, two things. You can check all the webinars of today. If you missed any webinar, they are already on YouTube. In a few minutes, Dakri session will be published. 5 sessions in English and 2 sessions in Arabic. This is our website for the people who are joining for the first time. We have our YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook. We have INSA for the French speaker, free session also in French. So feel free to check. On the 28th of September, we're working on the approaches to learning or 21st century skills in French. And then we have also some paid event for the people who would like to check what is coming. And as I told you this morning, on the 23rd of October, we will be doing a day on assessment in English, in Arabic. Feel free, invite your friends. And this is, again, those free webinars are my teaspoon of change, Dakri. So if you would like to say any final word, I would like to thank all the people who attended all the session today. 6 sessions, 6 hours of being online. Thank you for all the educators. Dakri.
Thanks, Ali, for coordinating this. I mean, it's so important to make connections between people. Global Goal 17, partnerships for the goals. I know Kathy Berger Kay really well, Bhavna from India and others. So it's just been fabulous to be part of it all. So well done to you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone,
Goodbye.
for joining in.